Have you ever stood in a dark hour and asked why life has to hurt so much? Have you ever felt lost in a sea of confusion, wondering if anything good could possibly come from your pain? This is an old story, a simple one, but it holds a timeless truth. This timeless tale reveals why even the deepest wounds can lead to ultimate salvation. It suggests that a wound can sometimes be the very thing that guides us back to life. In a land of rolling green hills, sun-drenched valleys, there lived a king. He was not a tyrant, nor a distant, unfeeling ruler. He was a good king, known for his kindness, known for a sense of justice. He kept the granaries full for his people. He listened to their grievances with a patient ear, and he governed with a fair hand. The people loved him. Under his rule, they knew peace and prosperity. They saw him as strong and benevolent, a protector of their way of life. Yet, for all his virtues, he was still a man. He had flaws, human frailties that cast a shadow over his better nature. He was proud, and that pride could curdle into arrogance. He liked to feel in control of his life and kingdom. When events spiraled beyond his command, anger rose within him. He was quick to judge and slow to forgive, especially when his authority was challenged. One clear morning, the king decided to go hunting in the royal forest. He loved the crisp air, the thunder of his horse's hooves on the damp earth, the thrill of the chase. It was an escape from the pressures of the court, a place where his authority felt primal and absolute. Surrounded by his retinue of guards and his ever-present minister, the king felt powerful and alive. He skillfully tracked a wild boar through the dense undergrowth. The world shrank to just him, the animal, and the path ahead. As he closed in on his prey, he urged his horse forward, raising his sharp, gleaming sword for the final strike. But in that fraction of a second, as his arm rose, his horse stumbled on an unseen root. The king was thrown off balance, a jolt running through his entire body. His grip on the sword faltered, and the heavy blade twisted in his hand. With a sickening slice, the sword came down not on the boar, but on his own left hand. A searing, white-hot pain shot up his arm, and he cried out, looking down in horror at the bloody mess. His little finger had been completely severed. The hunting party stopped in stunned silence. The guards rushed to the king's side. The king, clutching his maimed hand, was overcome not just by the physical pain, but by a wave of humiliation and fury. His eyes, burning with rage and disbelief, scanned the faces around him and finally landed on his old minister. "Whatever happens," he said, his voice steady and clear, "happens for the good." In that moment, the king's simmering resentment boiled over into a volcanic rage. To hear those words now, in the face of his own pain and disfigurement, felt like the ultimate betrayal, the cruelest mockery. He felt that his suffering was being dismissed, his authority belittled. Consumed by his anger, the king made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. He ordered his guards to seize the minister and cast him into the darkest dungeon in the castle. Days turned into weeks. The king's hand began to heal, but his heart remained wounded. The physical pain of his lost finger was slowly replaced by a dull, persistent ache in his soul. The silence left by the minister's absence was a constant, heavy reminder. A strange emptiness had settled over the palace. The king felt a growing unease and loneliness. He tried to busy himself with the affairs of the kingdom, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the cold, dark cell where his once trusted advisor now sat in chains. Unable to find peace within the castle walls, the king decided he needed to escape. He thought that another hunt would clear his head, that the thrill of the chase would help him forget the guilt and the anger that churned within him. He told his court he was going hunting again, but this time he wanted to go alone. He rode out from the palace, pushing his horse deeper and deeper into the forest, seeking a solitude so profound it might silence the troubled voices in his mind. He ventured far beyond the familiar hunting grounds, into a wild and untamed part of the jungle where he had never been before. The trees grew closer together, their branches forming a dense canopy that blocked out the sun, casting the world in a perpetual twilight. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the sounds of strange birds and unseen creatures moving in the shadows. The king, lost in his brooding thoughts, paid little attention to his surroundings until it was too late. He had wandered into the territory of a remote, fierce tribe, a people who lived apart from the rest of the world and followed ancient, unforgiving traditions. Suddenly, figures with painted faces and sharp, primitive weapons emerged from the trees, surrounding him. Before the king could even reach for his sword, he was overwhelmed. They bound his hands and his feet with rough binds and led him forcibly through the jungle. The king's heart pounded in his chest, the earlier anger he had felt now replaced by a cold, creeping dread. He was led into their village, a clearing filled with crude huts and a large, ominous fire pit, and he knew, with chilling certainty, that his life was in grave danger. The ritual of the perfect offering. In the center of the village, the tribe began their ritual. The air grew thick with the smoke from the central fire and the low rhythmic chanting of the tribespeople. The king, tied securely to a wooden post, watched with a growing sense of terror. He could not understand their words, but the meaning of the ceremony was terrifyingly clear. He was to be a human sacrifice. This was not an act of random cruelty. It was a sacred rite, one they believed was necessary to appease their powerful and demanding gods. The suspense was unbearable. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the end, the final, sharp pain that would end his reign and his life in this remote, forgotten corner of the world. Just as the chief priest, holding a long obsidian knife, approached him, the ritual came to a sudden halt. Their gods demanded a perfect sacrifice. The offering had to be a whole, complete human being, without any blemish, scar, or missing part. As the priest examined the king's hands, which were bound above his head, his eyes widened. The priest let out a sharp cry and stepped back, speaking rapidly to the other elders. A wave of murmuring and disappointment spread through the crowd. The offering was imperfect. He was flawed. With solemn faces, the tribesmen untied the ropes and, without a word, gestured for him to leave. The flaw that became a shield. The very thing that had caused him so much anger and shame, his missing finger, had just become his salvation. He fell to his knees on the forest floor, not in defeat, but in a flood of profound, humbling gratitude. The forest no longer seemed menacing, but alive with a grace he had never noticed before. Every rustle of leaves, every ray of light filtering through the canopy, felt like a miracle. He finally understood. Whatever happens, happens for the good. It had all been part of a larger, unseen plan to protect him. His small loss had prevented a total loss. With a newfound urgency, the king rode back to his palace, his heart no longer heavy with anger, but flying with the speed of revelation. He raced down the cold stone steps into the dungeons, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He rushed to the cell where the minister had been confined, his mind reeling with the need to apologize, to explain, to share the incredible turn of events that had proven the old man's wisdom in the most dramatic way possible. He threw open the heavy cell door and found the minister sitting peacefully on the stone floor, his face as calm and serene as it had always been. The king, the great and powerful ruler, fell to his knees before his imprisoned subject. Tears streamed down his face as he grabbed the minister's hands. He couldn't speak at first, choked by the force of his emotions. He recounted the entire ordeal, the lonely hunt, the capture, the terrifying ritual, and the miraculous discovery of his missing finger. He finally looked up at the minister and, with a broken voice, begged for his forgiveness. He begged for his forgiveness. The minister listened to the king's frantic story with a gentle, knowing smile. There was no surprise in his eyes. He helped the king to his feet and assured him that he held no anger in his heart. The king, overcome with relief and gratitude, ordered the guards to remove the minister's chains. But as the chains fell away, a new question began to form in the king's mind. I understand now. My losing a finger was indeed for my own good, as it saved my life. But I cannot see how it was good for you. You were innocent, yet because of my anger, you were thrown into this dark prison. You suffered in chains because of my foolish pride. How can you say that your imprisonment was also for the good? Your Majesty, Think for a moment. For years, I have never left your side. We go everywhere together. If I had not been in this prison, where would I have been on that day you rode into the deep forest?" The king's eyes widened as the implication dawned on him. "I would have been with you, and when the tribe captured us, they would have inspected us both for their sacrifice. You, your majesty, would have been rejected because you are missing a finger. But I am whole. I have no flaws, no missing parts. They would have found me to be the perfect offering." The king stared at him, speechless. The minister's imprisonment had not been a punishment. It had been his protection. The same unseen force that had saved the king by taking his finger had saved the minister by placing him in a prison cell. It had accounted for them both. Well, it had accounted for them both. Section 9. The hidden goodness in all things. The king stood in the dim light of the dungeon, but he felt as though he was seeing the sun for the first time. He finally understood the depth of the minister's faith. It was not a passive acceptance of fate, but an active trust in a benevolent, underlying order. He realized how small his own perspective had been, how his pride and his need for control had blinded him to the larger truths of life. He had punished wisdom with his anger, and in return, that same wisdom had indirectly saved his life and the life of his friend. A profound peace settled over the king, a quiet humility that washed away the last remnants of his arrogance. This story, in its simple way, offers us a powerful moral. It teaches us that we do not always see the full picture. We live our lives looking at a single thread, but we are part of a vast and magnificent tapestry. What appears to be a knot, a tangle, a broken strand from our limited viewpoint may be an essential part of the overall design. It invites us to cultivate a sense of trust, a faith that even in moments of pain, confusion, and loss, there is a purpose at work that is ultimately for our good. The king and his minister returned to the palace, their bond stronger and deeper than ever before. The king continued to rule, but he was a changed man. He ruled with more patience, more humility, and a newfound respect for the mysteries of life. The minister continued to serve, his calm faith now fully understood and deeply valued by his king. Their story became a quiet legend in the kingdom, a reminder to the people that suffering is not always meaningless, and that trust is a form of strength. They learned that sometimes the best we can do is to let go of our need for immediate answers and allow the story to unfold. So, when you find yourself in a dark hour, when life feels unfair and the path forward is unclear, remember this story. Remember the king who lost a finger and saved his life. Remember that a small wound can be a shield, and a setback can be a form of protection. Do not be too quick to judge your circumstances. Instead, take a breath. Ask a gentle question. What hidden good might be here? And then listen quietly for the answer. It may not come at once, but if you hold on to a little bit of faith, in time, you may find that you too were being guided and protected all along.